All right, it's time for draft class, and joining me today, Tate Frazier from The Ringer. Tate, how are you?
I'm doing well, KOC. I'm happy to be here. Happy to see your face. Happy to talk about this draft class. I was lucky enough to be at the McDonald's All-American game. I got to talk to all these guys, all these freshmen who are kind of lighting up college basketball right now. So I'm excited to dive into a few of them. But also, we have some stars from overseas and some seniors that are making a name for themselves. So college basketball, as is tradition, a good season and a lot of fun. So I'm excited to break it all down with you, man.
It's been a good year so far. We'll mix in, of course, some straight up college basketball talk alongside the NBA draft look ahead as well. I want to start out with a new segment with you, Tate. Student of the month. This is the player that not enough people are talking about. They're playing really well, outperforming people, outperforming expectations this year. Who's your student of the month for the month of November?
First off, I'm honored. I'm going to act like I'm part of the Student of the Month club here by being a part of this new segment. But my Student of the Month is a senior, so he's had a lot of time in school. He's learned how to kind of figure out his game a little bit, and it's Auburn's Keyshawn Hall. Now, when people watch Auburn, I think they all talk about Tahad Pettiford. He was the big name that went back, and obviously Tahad Pettiford has a lot of game. But the real star of this team, if you've been watching Auburn, yes, the games haven't been as expected. No Bruce Pearl. We got Stephen Pearl coaching this team, so it's a little bit different. But Keyshawn Hall has been so good getting to the rim, so good at getting to the free throw line, KOC. That was really the thing I wanted to talk to you about with Keyshawn Hall. I think he leads now the entire country in FTA's free throw attempts. It's about 9.7 free throw attempts per game. And I think just translating that ability to get to the foul line, to get to the basket, he has developed sort of as a player, a playmaker in general. And I think that those skill sets, I mean, yes, he's a little bit older. He's 22 years old, so he's not going to be your lottery level player. But when you're looking for guys that are like a TJ Shannon type player, a guy who could come in a little bit later, make an impact for you, I feel like Keyshawn Hall might be one of those guys. So I think he's worthy of the tab of Student of the Month, but I want to get your thoughts on him as well.
I mean, 6'7", 7-foot-ish wingspan. We don't know the exact measurement. He 21 points per game, 9 boards. Love how he rebounds. Love the activity. 40% from three. He's got like this weird lefty kind of like, he takes his guide hand, his offhand off pretty early. It looks kind of like almost a push shot sometimes as the ball releases if you take a snapshot at the end. But I like him, man. I mean, 4th school in 4 years for him. UNLV as a freshman, to George Mason, to UCF, now at Auburn. He's just kind of a quirky, squirmy player. The way he moves at his size with his handle, it's a little bit loose, but it works. And he can finish with either hand at the rim. He's a creative ball handler. There's a good energy to him. And with him defensively, I wish he were locked down, but I feel like he's offensively, he has enough tools to be a guy that gets a good opportunity in the NBA. I think he's a good choice for this first Student of the Month. It's an awesome first month for him. Anytime you're a wing, 6'7", averaging 21 points per game, 9 boards, 2 assists, elite efficiency, that's what this award is supposed to epitomize, Tate. So I'm very happy with this first choice for our first one of the college season.
I had a lot of pressure when you texted me. You were like, I'm doing Student of the Month. I went through all these different names. Adai Mara was a guy that came to mind at Michigan. He's had a really good year. Another transfer from UCLA that's found a new home, a new place. So an old face in a new place. We love those guys in college basketball. We see a lot of them. But yeah, Keyshawn Hall, I mean, he was not supposed to be, like I said, the banner guy for Auburn. We're supposed to be talking about Tahad Pettiford. Now, Pettiford has been good. But if you watch this team, he's obviously the best player on the team. He is the star player on this team. And the team might not be as good as expected this year because they've kind of had a bumpy start to the season. But when they've been good, it's been because of Keyshawn Hall. And when they've been bad, it's when he's gotten in foul trouble or, they just play a more superior team. So, I mean, Keyshawn Hall is definitely the guy for this group. And I'm excited to see how he develops throughout the season. And I do like the leadership as well. I feel like he's kind of the guy that is in the huddle speaking to this team and trying to get them all riled up as well. So I think that's another encouraging sign that's not even basketball related. It's personality rated. And I think that's another thing that will translate to the next level.
So Auburn has 2 games this week. They got NC State on Wednesday, and then they go west on Saturday, and they face number 2 ranked and undefeated Arizona. And with Arizona, we know what they did on opening night against Florida. Peat had 30 points in his first game, one of the best debuts we've seen from a freshman prospect ever, definitely in recent memory. Can you tell me, like, for people who haven't watched Arizona since that opener against Florida, what has Peat been up to? What have you seen from him? What do you like? What do you dislike?
Well, if you have been kind of locked in on Cameron Boozer, which I feel like most of the country has been, and I'm sure you have been, because there's a conversation, is he the number one pick? That obviously is a conversation that a lot of people will have throughout the rest of the season. You know, the Arkansas game, 35 points, 35 minutes, obviously what he did last night against Florida. But Koa Peat, to me, is a very similar vein to Cameron Boozer. I think he might actually translate a little bit better to the next level. I think Cameron Boozer is kind of the perfect player for college basketball. Koa Peat, to me, is a guy that maybe at the next level can do some things that, you know, maybe takes him into another echelon as far as a prospect. I've been thoroughly impressed with him. The one game that I saw him in person was the UCLA game out here. He did not have his best game. He was a little bit spooked out here in, the Intuit Dome. But again, that was a Jaden Bradley game. It's also a Mick Cronin kind of muck it up game. So that was his welcome to college moment. And I think that was the one time, if you wanted to kind of pick and nitpick his game a little bit, you could go to that UCLA tape. But just in general, he's a really solid kid. He's a really solid player. He's won everywhere. I think he won 4 state championships in high school. So he was a 4-for-4 type kid. He also played in his high school championship game with a broken hand. When I was at the McDonald's All-American game, he still had the cast on his hand. They're all going through the workouts and everything. And I just kind of was impressed with how engaged he was in the gym despite not being able to play. So he was kind of locked in with the guys, locked in with what they were running with drills, talking to coaches. I mean, you know how it is, Kevin. They have, Brad Stevens was in the building. It's kind of funny how, you got NBA executives around a bunch of high school players, but that's kind of how the McDonald's event works. And I think a lot of people were observing sort of how he handled himself and carried himself. And he carried himself like a superstar. And obviously what he's been able to do for this Arizona team is elevate them to a team that could potentially win the national championship. And we haven't been talking about them in that vein for a couple years. So I'm really impressed with what I've seen. I think the scoring acumen is there. I think his ability to kind of control a game with his own pace is really special. And I think we've, not even seen his best version of basketball despite being so good in that Florida game to open up the season.
Now, with him, I think there will be listeners who are, draft heads that listen to the show and they're like, better than Boozer in the NBA. Some people are going to say Koa Peat is a undersized big. That's going to be the pushback you get. But you mentioned that you think there's some untapped potential with him. What is that untapped potential you see with Koa Peat moving forward as he develops in the years to come?
Well, I think he's a power forward in the NBA. So I don't know if he's going to be a 5 in the NBA. So I guess he would be undersized if you slide him at the 5. But it is funny in college basketball where, it's actually a superpower to be one of those players in college basketball. Look at Tyler Hansbrough. He's like the greatest center in college basketball history, maybe the greatest player in college basketball history. He's a 6'9" guy playing the 5. Which I think Boozer and Koa Peat are kind of those guys that can slide down into that position and into that role. That was no knock on Cameron Boozer. Don't take it as a knock. I think that they're both really talented, and I do think that
you are
Cameron
a Carolina
Boozer,
guy, Tate. You are a Carolina guy. So.
I'm not knocking Cameron Boozer for that reason. I will say Cameron Boozer was a lovely kid to meet and talk to, and I did not want to like him, but I came away thoroughly impressed with how much you could take away from how good of a kid he was. But the first step to me, in general, for Koa Peat is a little bit more athletic and a little bit more impressive. And I think that's something when you talk about translate, that would be the thing that I would point to. And again, I'm not pitting these guys against each other. I just think that they're a little bit similar, their play styles in college. And I think that, at the next level, I look at a Cameron Boozer like in a Kevin Love type vein a little bit, like a little bit more fundamental. And I do think that Koa Peat has a little bit more of a pop potentially athletically at the next level. But again, Koa Peat's not going to be in the number 1 pick conversation. He's going to be in the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 range. I understand that. But he's a lot of fun to watch. And if you're not watching him play, it will be fascinating to see how he matches up against this Auburn team on Saturday. And I wouldn't be shocked if Auburn gives them a little bit of a run for their money because Auburn is looking for one of those wins to kind of get things back on the rails. So Koa Peat, that would be a fun one to watch because he's going to face a little bit of toughness and athleticism. We'll see how he matches up against it.
I mean, that Saturday in college basketball is huge. You got 5 undefeateds playing. Of course, we just mentioned Auburn going against undefeated Arizona, but then there's also Purdue, 8-0, number 1 team in the nation against Iowa State, both undefeated. Braden Smith, of course, who, played with Zach Edey with Purdue. He's still the biggest name in that game, but one of my weekly movers, one of the guys that I've really liked over on Iowa State, a junior forward, is Milan Momcilovic. He's a forward. He's got size, 6'8", shoot 52% on catch and shoot threes, 48% on dribble jumpers. He can attack closeouts, makes the right play. To me, he looks like an NBA wing, NBA forward, Tate. Do you see NBA potential here in Momcilovic?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of his game. I think he, Lipsy is probably the guy that if you're a college basketball fan, that's the kind of the face of the Iowa State team. But in reality, especially if you watch the Players Era Festival, Momcilovic was their best player by far and had some huge moments there, especially in one late drive in that game where he gets a contest at the rim and he's able just to basically pull the ball back away and just throw it in like a little run or float or whatever you want to call it. And to me, that's like the evolution of Momcilovic. He's a 37% career three-point shooter, which someone with that type of shooting is something to, obviously gets a lot of, GMs getting their eyebrows raised and saying, wait a second, maybe this is a guy we can look into. You mentioned the size also. And, look what Iowa State's been able to do with Otzelberger. Sweet 16s the past couple of years. I think this year they're going to be in the mix, probably a top 3 seed, you would suspect at this point, based on what we've seen with this group. And I think it's also great that we're pronouncing his name properly. Last year was Momcilovic. And we've now come to figure out that it's Momcilovic. So, we're moving in the right direction there. And he's a really, really good player and a very steady guy. And it feels like, a Bogdanovich type or something like that, where you could, not to like put the Vitches together. But again, I think he's going to be a good player. And I'm not sure he's like drafted in the first round or drafted, maybe late second round or something like that. But a team that takes a swing on him, I think they'll be happy.
Yeah, he's on the radar, and I think that's what he's shown so far this season with his development. And you mentioned the proper pronunciation. A lot of people get on me for my pronunciation of mom. I say mom. It's like a New England thing instead of mom, like most of the country does. So I think I was saying
it's all right. I'm from the South, KOC. I can't say anything right. Anything I say, that's wrong. So it's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't let the haters get to you.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I'm used to it. Iowa State though, Brock Purdy, Tyrese Halliburton, and then Milan Momcilovic. Here we go. It's starting to get some pros in the NBA and NFL. The game of the week. We have Auburn, Arizona, Iowa State, Purdue, Duke, Michigan State, 12 Eastern on Fox. Duke 9-0, Michigan State 8-0. Is Duke better this year, you think, Tate, than they were last year when they went to the Final Four?
In a word, no. Not even close, in my opinion. But it's okay. They don't have to be better than last year's Duke team. Last year's Duke team, talking about just passing the eye test, my goodness. Cooper Flagg is an incredible talent, as we all know. That's not anything that we can really obviously argue against. It's just the reality of the fact. The other thing that we really didn't really give credit during the season is how good Concanipple is, and I think now we're seeing it at the next level. But Duke is a really good team. I think they still have a point guard problem. Last year, they had the luxury of a point forward who is, Cooper Flagg. They also had a great situation with Proctor there who could step in. They also had Concanipple, who's one of the best like ball handlers, pick and roll type players, figuring out the short roll, playing off Cooper Flagg. So like they had this kind of a superpower as a group. I'm still shocked they did not win the national championship. I think it's going to be one of those teams we look back on and say, how the hell did they not win the national championship? So no, I don't think they're better than the Duke team last year, but that doesn't mean that they're not the best team in college basketball this year. And that is really, fascinating because that just shows how much talent that they really have as an organization, as a program. I think Gungba's been a really nice piece for them next to Boozer, especially rim protection wise. And just across the board, like they just have so much talent and they have guys coming off the bench that can make a difference in the depth of this group. And you have to give John Shire a whole lot of credit because Shire has done a really good job of like finding how to touch like the touch points of this team, right? Knowing when, a certain guy needs to get a certain touch and knowing, when to get Cameron Boozer involved in the game or when he's not been as active as he should be. So, this Duke team is really good. I think the fascinating thing that we'll see this weekend, specifically against Michigan State, they're kind of hanging their hat on the toughness as they always do. And there's a lot of pulling and tugging and holding and, that physical style of college basketball that a lot of people, might not see unless they're playing college basketball. As you heard from VJ Edgecombe, he hates college basketball. I think this is the reason why for games like this where you're going to get held, you're not going to have freedom of motion. Michigan State has a coach that knows they can't call it every single time, KOC. So Duke is going to face the most physical test. But luckily, they have a physical specimen in Cameron Boozer, who's named after Cameron Indoor. So I think I think Cameron Boozer is going to have a great game this weekend. But again, this will be the first time that they're physically going to be hounded by a team. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond and react. But again, the Duke team from last year, I don't want to disparage that group because that team was so good. I mean, they should have won the national championship, and I say that as a Carolina grad. So that's saying something for me, KOC, that I'm shocked they did not win.
I mean, I think first of all, you're spot on. Michigan State, what they're going to do, they kind of do the Oklahoma City Thunder thing, where they're not going to blow the whistle every play. They just know that it's not going to happen. So they play with that physicality that can be very difficult on the opponent. And with last year's Duke team versus this year's Duke team, I agree with you. I'm curious, Tate, with what you said. Would Duke have won the national title last year if they played through Con Knippel instead of through Cooper Flagg?
At the end of the game, you're saying, like the last possession, if they had decided to run it through Con Knippel?
Yep.
I think that they would have had more variety of options if they played through Knippel. And I mean that Con Knippel would have made the right read and made the right play, whether it was him taking the shot, him finding Cooper Flagg, him, finding an open shooter in Proctor or whatever it is. I think he would have made the right read. The problem in that situation is if you don't give the ball, and I think that would be, John Shire would never say it on the record, but the problem is, the expectation is that the best player needs to have the ball in his hands. And I think Cooper Flagg is obviously the best player. And I think, unfortunately for Cooper, he had the expectation to take the shot. And that's one thing I've always given LeBron James a lot of credit for, is that he is always kind of like prided himself on like, I'll try to make the right play or the right read. Now, it might be for vanity why he does that, because he doesn't want the smoke of missing the shot. But again, it is something that is hard to do, and you expect, the guy to take the shot. And I feel like it put a lot of pressure on Cooper Flagg. But if John Shire doesn't draw up a play for Cooper Flagg, then everyone's like, what an idiot. He had Cooper Flagg, the number one pick, a generational talent, right? So, I mean, it's kind of a lose-lose situation, and obviously they lost the game. But the physicality of Houston is the reason they lost. I mean, that's really what it came down to, and that's what they're going to face this weekend against Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately with Con, we saw what he did in those couple of games when Cooper was out at the beginning of March, and Con looked awesome with the ball in his hands. They kind of did go a little bit away from that. I felt like at times when they should have. And we're seeing, of course, what the Charlotte Hornets are doing with Con Knippel so far this season, just putting the ball in his hands. I mean, the Klay Thompson comparison that people make to Con, I get it because of the shooting and all that, but Con Knippel's averaging more pick and rolls per game than Klay ever did in his entire career. And he's a rookie.
Yeah.
In the first month and a half of his entire professional career. That number is just going to go up over time. He's going to get better over time with the ball in his hands. He was just on Jimmy Fallon the other night. Bye-bye, LaMelo. Goodbye.
Yeah. We got a new star in town.
Now.
Yeah, it's great. I'm excited. I mean, Brandon Miller is a great wing, and I just need him to stay healthy. That's really the thing with Brandon Miller. You and I really like Brandon Miller, and I think I still believe in his potential with that team. But yeah, you're right. Con Knippel, I like the Klay Thompson comparison because Klay, I mean, if he had the ball in his hands more and was off the dribble, he could obviously do and create a lot more. But I feel like he's almost like an Austin Reeves type, where it's like he's just so good at making the right read. Not to compare one-to-one with him and Austin Reeves, but I'm just saying with the pick and roll specifically, being able to make the right decision, whether it's in the short roll, whether it's taking a shot or making a decision, to find a guy in the corner, whatever it is. So Con Knippel is a lot of fun to watch. My parents are actually in New York tonight, and they're going to go to the Knicks game, and they're going to see Con Knippel in person. And my mom, who is also a North Carolina grad, 1982, she said she's going to pull for Con Knippel. That's how much Con Knippel has won over, the people in Charlotte and North Carolina people. That's how good he is. Where even Carolina fans are like, you know what? He's a good player. We like him. So Con Knippel, you're the star of the team.
I mean, he's amazing. Yeah, he really is. And it's only the beginning with that kid too. I'm very excited to see how Con develops over the course of time. With that Duke Michigan State game, we're kind of like in a glory days with the state of Michigan right now, Tate, aren't we? Michigan is 7-0. Michigan State is 8-0. Has it ever been better than this in the state of Michigan with these two teams?
I know it's a fascinating situation because the football team looks horrible, and they're obviously a football state. But if you really break it even into the NBA and the NFL right now, right? The Lions are trending down. Michigan football is trending down. Michigan State football just fired their head coach. And then if you look on the basketball side, Detroit Pistons, number one team in the East. Michigan, arguably the best team in college basketball right now. If you watch the Players Era Festival, you probably believe that. Beat the hell out of everybody. And then Michigan State, I mean, just stacking up wins. A real test on Saturday, obviously. But Dusty May is kind of the belle of the ball in college basketball. And I do feel like at some point the NBA is going to see what Dusty May is doing down in college and say, hey, why can't this guy get pulled up the ranks? And we have a new Brad Stevens type golden boy situation on our hands. But for now, Michigan's a really good team. Their front court is incredible. Yaxel Lindeborg, Morez Johnson Jr., who transferred from Illinois, and then Adai Mara, who came from UCLA. So that front court is one of the best, if not the best in college basketball. Elliot Cadeau transferred over from North Carolina. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over, they've been a really, really good team. And over the past couple of weeks, they went from 15 turnovers a game to around 12 turnovers a game. And that difference has really gotten this offense into a flow. And with those three guys in the front court, the backcourt doesn't have to do too much. It also helps with Namari Burnett shooting 50% from three, like he did during the Players Era Festival. So Michigan's a real title threat. I think a lot of people thought they'd have a good season, maybe not this good, but those two teams and Indiana and Purdue, those four teams are all teams that look like they could win the national championship right now. And Indiana maybe is a little bit of a stretch, but they look really good too. And they got a really good coach over there with DeVries. So, I mean, there you have it, KOC. The state of Michigan's doing well. The Big Ten might win a national championship, be the first time this century. So that could be a big day if they don't count Maryland. So I'm encouraged by both teams.
It's pretty crazy with Michigan. They had, 7 or 8 transfers, right, on their roster this season?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole new group. Yeah, and they didn't look great. Like they should have lost to Wake Forest. Wake Forest took them to overtime, and Wake just got blown out by Oklahoma last night in the Players Era Festival or the SEC Players Era and the SEC ACC Challenge. So Wake Forest is not a great team, but they made Michigan look like they were on the same level. But Michigan has amped it up a level, and that goes back to coaching. I think Dusty May was still fact finding with this group, and Adai Mara, who we got on the screen right there. I mean, Adai Mara has been great for this group. So to have someone that's a 7-footer like him next to Lindeborg, who is an NBA prospect, obviously a guy who was a fringe candidate this past season. They got a really good team, a really good group, and Lindeborg will probably be in National Player of the Year conversations at the end of the day. So that's an encouraging sign for Dusty May in Michigan.
I mean, with Mara, it's funny because when he goes to UCLA, I'm still living in LA at the time. I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to watch this lottery pick right off the street in Westwood at UCLA. And it was 2 stinker seasons.
You were right there.
Him, right? And now he is looking really good. He's looking like an NBA level guy. Of course, he's a junior now. But, I mean, you're seeing there were the skeptics of Zach Edey when he entered the NBA out of Purdue as one of the best college players ever. And he's been great with Memphis. Now that he doesn't have to worry about 5 fouls, he's defending more. He's still gobbling up every rebound around the rim in addition to everything he's doing offensively at the basket, improving his jumper as well. He looks like a 10-plus year vet in the NBA. Having a big, large, beefy center is a thing in the NBA now. It's just the reality of it. It's no more PJ Tucker at the 5, except for small spurts in small little stretches of games. Having a true big center is valuable now. And so I think with Adai Mara, I'm not saying he's going to go back up into the lottery at this point after his 3rd year of college, but these guys have value in the NBA. He sure looks like a first rounder to me. He looks like the guy that I hope for his freshman year at UCLA. What is different about him now? Like why is it working for him now in year 3 at Michigan versus year 1 at UCLA and year 2 at UCLA for that matter as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good look for Mick Cronin that he has gone over with Dusty May and looks like a totally different player. But I think that Mick is a little bit old school in the way he was coaching him. I think that Dusty has done a good job of like, hey, we don't need you to have your back to the basket doing post moves. We just need you to be active on the offensive glass. We'll get you easy buckets in the dunker spot, right? I mean, there's a lot of like little minutia that they've been able to figure out with the Daimara. But going back to your point about like we need bigs in basketball, I almost like as much as Steph Curry kind of broke our collective brains in basketball and everyone's trying to find the next Steph Curry, I do think Draymond broke everybody's brain as well because everyone thought that you could just put a guy that is that size at the 5 and it would work out. And I think it's actually disrespectful to someone like Draymond, because it's like, no, he's a one of one in the sense that he's able to guard big men the way that he's able to. But we should all, as is tradition in basketball history, we should all be okay to take a guy who's 7'4". Like the Zach Edey discourse to me was insane. I thought that Zach Edey would be a lottery pick. I was happy when he was a lottery pick. Yes, he was the last lottery pick, but I do, kind of find that fascinating where it's like we went away from like these big guys who can make a difference and get us easy buckets. And then all of a sudden when they start doing it after we've gone away from them, everyone's like, yeah, that would be useful to have those guys. So I think a Dymara is just a really nice piece, especially on the defensive end too. I mean, the rim protection in college basketball, right? You get beat off the dribble if you're Elliot Cadeau or you're Burnett or whoever it is. And right behind you is a guy who's 7 foot tall, or Morez Johnson, who's a very active defender, especially around the basket. So he's kind of perfect for this group and this team. And I do think he translates well. I'm not saying he's going to be a lottery pick, but look, 7-footers like that, they don't, we have a bunch of them, obviously, but they're not everywhere, especially with the ball skills like we've seen from him. So give him a lot of credit for, sticking with it, because, Mick Cronin can break a lesser man. So he got away from there and he's playing some good basketball.
On the Michigan State side, there's no like lottery guy on that team, but I'm intrigued by Jackson Kohler. 14.3 points per game, 9.9 boards, 42.9% from three. Really good post player. But do you think, Tate, he's too small, to be a big, too slow to be a forward at the next level? I'm just curious to get your thoughts about what he does well for Michigan State, but also what it could mean for his NBA future.
I think that, he's the kind of guy that has a college career, I mean, maybe there is an NBA future that's in there, and it's okay. We don't all have to be prospects. I think that's something that's gotten lost in the world that we live in now, where everyone's like, well, how does he translate to the next level? It's like, well, I mean, Jackson Kohler is a really good basketball player, and he doesn't necessarily have to translate his game to a totally. I mean, we always forget, like, college NBA is totally different sports. Like, yes, they play the same game, but it's a totally different sport. So I don't necessarily see him as like an NBA prospect. Like, I don't think Jackson Kohler is going to be on many people's big boards, but he's going to make a big impact in college basketball, especially on this team, especially rebounding the basketball. And he just seems to make timely shots in big time moments. So, I mean, that's the real takeaway for me. I think Fears is the guy. Their point guard, Jeremy Fears, is the guy that I would be looking at. I mean, again, small guards are always a kind of a tough thing to, again, figure out the translation to the next level. But I think he's done a really good job setting the table for that team. And I do think he has a lot of the traditional point guard kind of, mentality and ability that you really, teams not like to have, because they're like, this guy knows how to get everybody involved. He knows how to do, time, possession, what we expect, how to get in the offense, all that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure that Michigan State, like you said, has really any NBA prospect per se, but I think Fears to me is the most intriguing.
A team that does definitely have NBA prospects is your North Carolina Tar Heels. Caleb Wilson, potential top 4, top 5 pick in the NBA draft. For another lottery lesson here, Tate, I am curious. Caleb Wilson so far this season, there's been some ups, there's been some downs. What are you liking? What are you disliking? What are some of your concerns for him moving forward this season? What do you need to see him get better at?
I've seen a whole lot of good. I mean, I don't really, the first step is elite. The athleticism is superb. The motor is unparalleled in college basketball. I think that's really the takeaway from Caleb Wilson. If you watch him play, you're just so impressed by the fact that this kid is diving on the floor. He's trying to dunk anything within the realm of the rim. He's a special talent, and he seems to be a special person by all account. He took a lot of the stuff that happened at the McDonald's game pretty personally. I talked to him a little bit there with sort of, the conversation around the players that were there. He took it a little bit as a snub with the way that he was treated and the way that he was handled a bit. And I think he hurt himself by going to play with Cam Boozer at the AAU level, because then everybody sees those guys on the same team and they say, well, Cam Boozer's the franchise guy and Caleb's the other guy. Caleb's got a team again that's his team, and it's kind of made in his image, and we see what that is. And he's been a vocal leader on this team. He's not running away from the smoke. He is, he said that they were going to take belt to ass to everybody. And, a lot of times you say that and it's just saying it, but he was backing it up so far this season. I think the Kentucky game in Lexington was a big stage, a big moment. The physicality of Kentucky got to him. They did a good job kind of bracketing him, double teaming him, throwing different looks at him. He did not shoot the ball relatively well in that game, even though the jumper has been really superb early on in the season, especially against Kansas. I think the Kansas tape is something that if you want to see kind of the fully, formed version of Caleb Wilson, what he can do, I would just pop that tape in because he looks like a superstar. And, when Kentucky's physicality got to him, I think that was the first sign of like, he's going to have to put on some weight. He's going to have to get a little bit stronger, especially with the basketball. He struggled a little bit around the rim against Kentucky. And I think that would be, to point to some of the things that you would be concerned about. But I'm not really concerned about it because I think he's going to get bigger. I think he's going to get stronger. And I think he's going to elevate as he has kind of been prone to do throughout this stretch of the season. So they call him 8-Ball. I don't know if there's a better nickname for him, but he's a clutch guy. So he's got, the whole Rich Paul, LeBron James camp behind him. I'm shocked they haven't done more promo for him. It does feel like he's having to hype himself up a little bit. But if you watch Caleb Wilson, the tape doesn't lie.
I'm trying to get him on. I know Jeff Goodman had him on his show, and he's like, I'm going to be the number one pick.
He wants to be the number one pick.
He wants to be.
Yeah, I don't think look, I'll say this. I don't think Caleb is in the number one pick conversation per se, but again, the number one pick is very political. And to me, I think there's a two-man race for the number one pick. I think it's Darryn Peterson. I think it's AJ Dybantsa or Dybantsa, whichever one you want to use. So I think it's those two guys, and maybe Cameron Boozer's in that conversation if you want to open up the gates a little bit. But I think it's really those two guys. And I think Caleb Wilson is like, if he goes number 4, number 5, like if he's Chris Bosh and goes number 4, right? That's a really good spot. And I think you're going to get a really talented player. So I think if anything, just based on how he mentally works, you don't want him to go number 1 because it seems like he's better with a chip on his shoulder. So if you get Caleb Wilson 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 range, I think you're a happy camper because he's going to use that as motivation. And I think he's going to be a star. I really do. So I've been thoroughly impressed, as you can tell.
I mean, I've been thoroughly impressed with him as well. I think, anytime you have a young player, it's totally fair to pick nits, right? I mean, I had Sam Vecini on a couple of weeks ago, and we're talking about Cameron Boozer's at-rim finishing struggles earlier in the year for Duke. He's been pretty good since then. He's using the glass more often. It feels like he's just finding better angles at the basket. He's showing some improvement in Duke's game since then. Caleb Wilson so far this season, you mentioned, the effort with him on the defensive end of the floor. He is full throttle, intense, wants to win, plays hard, plays with energy. You can point to like his lack of awareness against Michigan State with his off-ball defense. It's something to note. Like if I'm an NBA coach, like that's something you want to be in the film room with him. But I think anytime you have a player who plays with his effort and intensity, I'm not overly concerned from my standpoint. Like when it comes to analyzing these players, saying he was so bad off ball defensively against Michigan State in the second half of that game. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, he's a teenager. As long as he has the mind, I think those players tend to get better at those things. And offensively, you mentioned some of the at-rim finishing. The numbers aren't good. He's 3 for 17 on layups in the half court, only 5 for 12 on layups in transition. So that's 8 for 29 total. His jumper, he had the great game against Kansas, as you said, but he's 4 for 15 on jumpers for the entire season so far, 75% from the line. So it's fair to question what's his actual touch, especially with the layups, but how much of that is, not touch? How much of that, Tate, is actually more like, oh, it's just a lack of strength. It's about shot selection and the little things he needs to learn adjusting to a more physical level of play in college basketball. So it's a long year ahead. I'm not overly concerned about either of those things with Caleb Wilson. Overall, I am beyond impressed with him. I think there's a chance he could push for the top 3. I would not rule that out at all when it comes to, June, after pre-draft interviews and improvement by that point and all that. Like, there's a long way to go. I think for now,
he
having
also
him
leads
number 4.
Yeah, I think number 4 is perfect. I think he leads the country in dunks also. So like a lot of
Yes.
that at rim finishing
Yes.
can be fixed simply by him dunking the basketball. And I think
And he's
I
dunking
know
a lot.
Marcus Page.
He
He's
doesn't
dunking
miss
a lot.
dunks.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem with the layup stat there is that like the best thing that he does is dunk the basketball. And I think like his offensive rebounding on his own misses too is like part of the problem. Like he had a moment in the Kentucky game where he threw the ball off the glass to himself, got the rebound, and it should have been an and one, but he made an incredible finish. But like that hurts the layup stats because the first one was him basically just trying to get out of a situation where he's in a double team. So the context matters a little bit with him. But I'm with you. I think if I were to do the draft, and I'm not a draft guy, and I know that you're the expert here, but like to me, it's a Darryn Peterson, AJ Dybantsa, Cam Boozer, then Caleb Wilson. And then I think at 5, it's like Nate Ament or Koa Peat, and that's
Could be
really
a
my
ton of
top
guys.
5. Yeah,
Yes,
right.
I
Or
think that's
Mikael
totally
Brown. I mean,
fair.
I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like those are the guys to me that kind of look the part so far.
Yeah, I think that's roughly the list at this point. And that 5th spot, I mean, we'll see. It's a real long way to go at this point, but I do think those are the names right now. With North Carolina, one of the guys that I really liked last year at Arizona was Henry Visar. He had 13 points on 6 of 9 against Michigan State, then 17 points on 8 of 12 with 10 boards against Kentucky. What have you liked from Visar so far with North Carolina?
I like when he catches the ball in the short roll and he's right in front of the free throw line and he decides just to dunk the basketball. I mean, this guy, he had a huge play last night where he kind of dummied a dribble handoff and then just turns back the other way and gets an easy dunk that helped Carolina get tied late in that game against Kentucky. If anything, he should be having more touches for North Carolina. And there was a lot of times in that game where North Carolina was struggling to find offense, and it felt like they weren't able to give Visar the ball. And, that's been an issue with the point guard play. I think North Carolina is going to end up pivoting to Dixon at point guard. And I think Dixon's going to be better with some of those entry passes. The high-low passing between Caleb Wilson and Vesar early on in the season has been electric. I mean, they just kind of play well off each other. They've been really good at being able to make themselves available at the free throw line. They've struggled against some of the higher competition, right, against the Kentuckys, Michigan States of the world. They did great against Kansas. But I think that when they can get a point guard that's more dedicated to getting him the basketball in the right places, he's really going to take a next level. And I've already seen people talking about kind of what he translates to. And I think it goes back to the Daimara conversation we were having. It's like it's valuable to have someone that's 7'1", 7'2", that can have that type of touch and can be an offensive weapon, but also defensively be someone that can, really give you rim protection. And he had never had a 10 rebound game at Arizona. And he has had, I think, already 4 games with 10 plus rebounds at North Carolina. And we're obviously early in the season. So that's also the encouraging side. I was worried about his rebounding more than anything, but he is really up the ante on the boards. And I think that's something that you can be really encouraged by with Vesar.
Do you think your Tar Heels have a chance at the national title? Do you see that upside for them this year?
I think that they're like a second weekend team, and I think Seth Trimble, who is their best perimeter defender, is out right now. Had a weird injury in the weight room where he had weights fall on his wrist, and he's going to be out until kind of mid-December, maybe late December. So I think if Trimble comes back and fit in, I think they're going to make the change at point guard. I think Kyan Evans, who they have playing point guard right now, is a lot better as a catch-and-shoot option. They got Luka Bogovac, who's a nice catch-and-shoot option as well. So I think if they have Dixon, Evans, Trimble, Bogovac, that backcourt looks a little sturdier than it does right now. Their front court is really good. Jaren Stevenson, Caleb Wilson, Henry Vesar. Those 3 guys I really have a lot of faith in. So, look, the tournament's a crapshoot always, but I think that they're in the mix. I think they're going to be in the mix to win the ACC. And, just give them a chance. Hubert Davis, he needs one more run at it. So maybe this is the year, KOC. We need it.
You mentioned potential number 1 picks. Darryn Peterson still out. He's been out since November 7th with his hamstring issue. Bill Self said this week that he's at 90, 99, 95%, but he's not going to play until he's 100%. And Bill Self's full quote was, "I said all along, we're not going to play him until he is. It was as much my decision as anything, but I also sensed he wasn't quite there yet." Tate, are we ever going to see Darryn Peterson suit up with the Jayhawks again?
I saw him in person in the Dean Dome. I was at the Carolina-Kansas game, and it's a lot of people in that space that have watched a lot of good basketball players. Larry Brown, Mark Turgeon, former Maryland coach, is there. Roy Williams is there. The litany of players, both from Kansas, Mario Chalmers, right? All the Carolina players that were there. And pretty much the takeaway from most everyone that I kind of talked to in short form conversations was basically like, man, number 22. He's the real deal because he didn't even have a great game, KOC, but he was obviously the best player on Kansas. And I would argue Caleb Wilson was the best player on the court that night. But talent-wise, you could see what Darryn Peterson could be, which is like he could impact the game even when he's off. And I think that's very special as a guard. You don't really have guards that can do that type of stuff. That's to me, that's like Derrick Rose, John Wall. There's like a rare air of guards that can really impact while not being able to score the basketball. And he did end up scoring it all right, but didn't have his best game. But yeah, he's a very special talent. I think he's a very special person by all accounts. I heard some of the Kobe comps. I'm not really sure I'm with that, but I got to meet him, got to talk to him a little bit. He seems like a cool customer, and Bill Self is just protecting him because he knows that he's going to be a superstar. So to me, after seeing him in person, I've seen AJ in person as well. I came away, kind of thinking to myself, he's going to be the number one pick. So it depends on what the team at the top spot needs. We all love wings, but I think he's really special, and I think he does come back, and I think he has a big impact on this Kansas team.
Yeah, I agree with every word you said about what he's capable of doing for sure. We saw him this year. We've seen him score. We've seen him play off ball defensively. We've seen him be a lockdown defensive guy, even back at the high school level. He checks every single box, and he's fluid with his motion and movement. I think right now I lean towards him at number one, but I'm not locking anything in. I don't want to anchor myself to anything yet.
Got a lot of games.
Dybantsa, yeah, that's a lot of games to go, and hopefully a lot of games for Darryn Peterson as well for Kansas moving forward as well this season. Florida lost again this week. They're 5-3 to start the year as the defending champions. Tate losing to Duke and Cameron Indoor on Tuesday night. What's your take on Florida? What's going on with them? They seem to be a little bit underwhelming in some ways.
Yeah, they I think that they won the headlines of the transfer portal, which is, hey, we got former 5-star number one point guard Boogie Fland, and we get Xavier Lee from Princeton. He's going to be plug and play for us. The backcourt is just not there. And, I just think what they had to replace in that backcourt, obviously Walter Clayton, the most outstanding player, that's an obvious one, but really Elijah Martin, who I feel like is a little bit unheralded when we talk about this team, and Will Richard as well, who's obviously showing a lot of signs with the Golden State Warriors, already becoming a player for that team, and he's a really good player in general. So those three guys leaving, yes, the front court is still intact. Yes, the front court is still elite, but I just think they don't have the guard play. And it's not even the scoring, because I think I've seen a lot of people be like, well, Boogie Fland's been great. Did you not watch him in Cameron? He was so good late in that game scoring the basketball. And I think Boogie Fland is super talented in that capacity. And I do think that Boogie Fland is kind of filling the Walter Clayton role. But I think what they're missing is the Elijah Martin role. And they just don't have that perimeter defender that can really hound other teams' guards. And I think that's really what's missing from this team. And until they get Klavchar or one of these other guys to really step up and be able to do that, then they're just going to really struggle against some of the guards in the SEC and beyond. But Thomas Houck has been great. He's their best player. I like Chinyelu. I like Alex Condon. But Xavier Lee is kind of like a Boogie Fland. They're just kind of the same guy. They're just two scoring guards, and they really need defense, especially on the ball. There's just no ball pressure there. And I think if Todd Golden was sitting here with us and was talking with us, he would say the same thing. So they're still going to be a good team. They're still going to be a team to be reckoned with, but they got to figure out that backcourt ASAP.
What about St. John's? I mean, they're the number 2 seed last March.
The same problem. Yeah.
Same issues with them.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there. I'm just like, they kind of did the same thing as Florida, where RJ Lewis was such a special defender for them last year, and or RJ Louise, as Rick Pitino called him after he didn't play so well in the tournament. He changed his whole name, which is crazy.
That was
Still,
so
we'll never get over that. I think
What
he
a
hurt his whole
legend.
NBA career.
What a legend Pitino is.
Just the most Rick Pitino thing ever. But yeah, Ian Jackson is a Boogie Flan type guy, right? I mean, he's a scoring guard. I think that he has a lot of untapped potential. I think you really have to get him to buy in defensively. And if he does, maybe that changes the course of the season for them. I really like Dylan Mitchell. I think he's a really good defender. I think he could be arguably the Big East Defender of the Year, but you can't be that player if you give up 85 points a game. Like, they're not going to give Defensive Player of the Year to a team that gives up 85 points a game. And I think a lot of people worried about the offense of this team, but really it's the defense and the defensive identity. I mean, Dylan Darling's doing his best out there, but the backcourt is just not there for St. John's right now, especially defensively. So, yeah, they kind of mirror Florida a little bit, where they get Zuby Ejiofor, they get Condon back. You know what I mean? It's like both those teams got their bigs back of note, but they just haven't been able to figure out defensively what to do with the ball pressure. And the press doesn't work if you don't press, And I know that sounds stupid, but like, you have to put pressure on the ball for the press to work. If not, people are just going to carve up the press. And that's kind of what's happened to them, And it's just anti-Rick Pitino. It doesn't fit Pitino's mold or mentality at all. So they have a lot to figure out too.
I'm trying to pull up right now their numbers defensively with the press so far this season. But I do, like you said, it's definitely not what it was last year for them.
It doesn't pass the eye test. I mean, maybe the numbers say, hey, they're not that bad on the press or whatever, but I'm just just watching them. It feels like on defense, they're like, hey, Dylan Mitchell, save us, and he can do a lot of switching on the perimeter. He's obviously a really naturally gifted defender, but they don't have a true point guard. And I know Rick Pitino said point guards don't exist anymore, but in college basketball, they kind of do. And they're kind of necessary, because we just watched Walter Clayton, his former point guard, go win Most Outstanding Player. So there's a little bit of irony to the whole conversation.
Boy, Dylan Mitchell, another guy. There's a lot to like when he entered Texas. 4 years ago, or 3 years ago at this point, when he was a freshman entering Texas, and he gets a little pit stop at Cincinnati, and now he's at St. John's, and still can't shoot at all. Hasn't figured it out, unfortunately.
He's got a push shot. You were talking about push shots earlier. Yeah, got I don't know what it is. They're not going to fix it. I know they fixed RJ Lewis's shot at St. John's for the most part, but I mean, they don't even want Mitchell to shoot. That's the problem. They're like, all right, well, all these other guys are going to shoot. You just play defense, and I don't know if that's a good deal for him.
I mean, he's like kind of college Ben Simmons in a way.
Honestly,
he sort of is. I mean, speaking about lefties, exactly. Pronunciations, RJ Lewis, RJ Louis. We were talking before the podcast about AJ Dybantsa or Dybantsa. I want to play you an audio clip recorded from WCVB Boston. Asking AJ and Ace how to pronounce the last name.
For the once and for all, tell us how to say your last name.
Dybantsa. Just forget the T's there. Silent. Dybantsa.
What's crazy to me about this? So I'll tell my version of the story. So I'm at the McDonald's All-American game. We're doing the interviews with the guys. AJ, most everybody's partnered up with somebody, right? So it's like, Koa Peat and Mikael Brown Jr. together, right? So you get like partnered up. But AJ came in separately, and probably for the reasons that you would suspect. He's a superstar, but he comes in with his dad, and we do our little interview. And I'm asking him like top 5 things and whatever else I was at, all types of like quick hitter questions, and we get done. And so I had asked, the McDonald's guy before, I was like, what is it? AJ Dybantsa or is it AJ Dybantsa? And he was like, it's Dybantsa, right? So I don't even say his name, during our little thing. So then I go up to his dad afterwards, and I'm like, I might as well get it straight from the source. So I go to AJ's dad, who is, if you don't know, AJ's dad is, he runs the AJ Dybantsa, empire. And I was like, what do we do here? Is it Dybantsa? Is it Dybantsa? And I said, I think it's Dybantsa. And, or that's what I assumed it was. And he was like, yes, it's Dybantsa, like an ant, like Dybantsa. And it's crazy because I think he told Jay Billis also, because Jay Billis says Dybantsa as well. and I have been saying Dybantsa, and either he's getting one over on us and he's just having a lot of fun laughing at us, which I honestly think is hilarious if that's the case, or AJ doesn't know how to pronounce his own last name. So I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I texted Ace Dybantsa during our recording. I said, "Can you send me an audio file of you pronouncing your last name, looking for the proper way to say it?" And he sent me that link to that video that I just played, and he with the message DDEE ... BAN ... T is silence, which isn't very helpful because it could be ban or bon.
Yeah, the ban. The ban is ban. It's not
ban
bond.
or bond. Yeah,
it's ban. It's not bond.
But
I'm just telling you.
But in the video, he says Dybantsa. AJ says Dybantsa. So I need to get Ace needs to send me an audio file, a voice recording. I'm gonna ask for that from him specifically.
The best part about this is like I would honestly be so scared if it was just me that was a part of this. I'd be like, this is my old memory all screwed up. But like Kyle Crichton, shout out to producer Kyle. Kyle was there for this whole thing, and he was like, he liked that you knew how to pronounce the name right. Like he he really appreciated that I said Dybantsa. And now I'm all thrown for a loop, but at least I have a witness. So like we will get Kyle in at some point to litigate this whole process, because I've been saying Dybantsa on every show, and everyone has tried to correct. Like you know how everybody's a know-it-all, Kevin. You know this. So everyone's like, Tate, it's Dybantsa, and I'm like, I don't care what you tell me. He told me
it's
Dybantsa.
Like the Luka Doncic people, right?
Yes, right.
It's not Doncic. You guys are all idiots. It's like, Doncic.
I said Doncic when he first came out, and everyone's like, "You're an idiot." I also said Marvin Bagley. I would take him, but things happen.
We all have our misses. That's for sure.
See,
Tate,
that's why you don't be honest. You know what I mean? Like I was like, or you do be honest. Sorry, I was trying to cape for Duke at the time because I was like, you know what? Everyone thinks I'm a Duke hater. I need to be nice to Marvin Bagley. He is a really good player. I'll say Marvin Bagley should go number 2 to the Kings. And the only 2 people that thought that was correct are me and Vlade Divac. So it was a mistake. But that's why you're never nice to the Duke guys. That's why I had to talk about Cameron Boozer. I learned my lesson.
It is what it is. Tate, I hope a One Shining podcast makes a return this year, man.
Me too,
I miss listening to your show, man. You are crushing it always, though, with everything you're doing at the Ringer. Appreciate you joining me today, man, to talk some college basketball, some NBA drafts. Always good to talk to you, Tate. Thank you, man.
Of course, man. Anytime. And next time you talk to Ace, please give me an update, because I need to know so I stop sounding like an idiot.
Will do. See you, Tate.
Thanks, man.